This is Coach Lee, and you're listening to The Door Report.
I have a message for the very few Vanderbilt Commodore fans out there. 4-8 at best this season. 4-8 at best. That's your best case scenario.
Cheese sticks, wings, and cinnamon sticks.
This my kind of night. Hell yeah!
Diego Pavia is a horrible quarterback. He is. Did you know that last year he threw for 500 less yards than Peyton Thorne? And people treat him like he's a Heisman candidate. He's awful.
Welcome back into the Door Report and welcome into episode 341 on a lovely but cold Tuesday evening, back to our regularly scheduled time, November 11th, 2025. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, aka Hack Squat, Jim Duggan. Here at the Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. Shipping is always fast and free. We also have Rhoback Activewear. There is only one way to describe Rhoback: best fit, best feel. And I was rocking double Rhoback this week.
Yeah,
Rhoback
he was.
Polo and the Rhoback quarter zip. Best polos, best quarter zips on the market. Can't change my mind about it. For those who aren't familiar with Rhoback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rhoback has released so many items within their newly licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs and clean hoodie and quarter zip designs for some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else in the market is pairing these levels of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Rhoback's everyday shorts or their Delta performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. They are both super comfortable, have an elastic waistband, and great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort for a day on the move. Rhoback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, both past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. You can use code VAN20, that is VAN20, on Rhoback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers. That's spelled Rhoback, RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with code VAN20. Final ad read, I forgot to write anything down here, but we are proud to announce that we are officially partners with the NIL store. You can go to nil.store/doorreport15, and you can use code doorreport15, all capital letters, no spaces, for 15% off your order. They have some incredibly good-looking Eli Stowers, Diego Pavia t-shirts, jerseys, whatever you're looking for. Get the best NIL gear at nil.store/doorreport15. That's it for the ad reads. It's all ball now.
I actually just had a wonderful idea that I'm wondering if we could workshop live on the pod. Since we have a partnership with the NIL store, I'm wondering if there's a possibility for us to collab with some of the athletes that are represented on the NIL store and do a insert athlete X TDR collab. I wonder if that's a possibility. A Diego Pavia X TDR shirt would go bonkers.
We also really do need to dig into, or I need to dig into, getting TDR hats made.
Yeah, I would love
that.
Ball
Seems
cap.
to be a common request. T-shirts are a lot more complicated. I figured out how to do a one-time, or not a one-time, but like a purchase link versus having to create an entire store. So that would be really good for hats. The issue with hats is a majority of hat printing companies to do customized hats suck.
Yeah, and they're just ugly.
And I like a great quality hat. I don't want to get one of the cheap trucker foam hats. I want a good quality cloth hat with a what's the term? A stitched design.
Yes, I'm a
I
big
don't want
stitch
to. I
guy.
don't want a screen printed design.
Mm-mm.
So that's been the holdup. And then when you do find one like that, the cost per unit is really high.
Yeah.
So to everybody out there that's been asking, that's the holdup on that. I'm just at one point a while back we did polos and they were just awful. Never went live with them because they were such terrible quality. So I don't want that to happen again. So it's not going to be one of those things where when it's put out that I don't have them in my possession. If you ever see a link out saying we are selling TDR hats, just know they're in my possession. It's not a drop shipping thing. You're not ordering or pre-ordering anything. I'm not doing that because I want to make sure they're of good quality. People get what they want. So look out for that. Maybe once football season ends and the chaos kind of slows down just a little bit and we focus in on basketball, then I can turn my brain to that a little bit.
If there's any seamstresses out there that happen to listen to TDR and were able to hook us up with blank hats, and we will compensate fairly. If anything, I believe in fair compensation. Let's make a little deal. But a Diego Pavia or an Eli Stowers X TDR ball cap or shirt, anything, shorts, we'll go bonkers.
Or if anybody knows of a good hat
Yes,
manufacturer, please
yes.
reach out to me
Yes.
personally on my personal Twitter account. Please reach out. It's or email doorreport@gmail.com because a lot of times the random DMs you get just get lost in the spam and porn bots on Twitter. That's unfortunate. But we have we'll say a little less than beefy, but still beefy episode 41. A hearty like Campbell's soup.
Chunky.
Episode 341 here. We have the Auburn game to recap. A thrilling, heart attack inducing, stressful 45-38 overtime victory over the Auburn Tigers for the Vanderbilt Commodores. We have me and Trevor's 3 key takeaways from that game. Then we're going to do a little basketball talk after the TDR cocktail break. And then we will discuss Vanderbilt's college football playoff chances. The second release of the college football playoff rankings just went live. Me and Trevor are recording right after we watched the special on ESPN. Vanderbilt currently sitting at number 14 in the latest CFP rankings. Needs some things in front of them to break right. It doesn't mean that unlikely things necessarily have to happen, but things need to break right even if Vanderbilt is able to go 10-2. We will dig into that a bit, and then we will dig into premium message board questions, which I have a feeling will be related to the college football playoff rankings in all likelihood. So, Trevor, Vanderbilt moves to 8-2 on the season, 8 wins. Just want to emphasize 8 wins for Vanderbilt and the possibility of winning 9 games in the regular season for the first time since 1915. Not hearing a lot of people talk about that, but that is a big deal. So, Trevor, what's the vibe check?
The vibe check, now that I'm a couple days removed from Saturday, is still high. I'm going to give it between the game and other games that Vanderbilt needed to break their way. It was a really good Saturday for Vanderbilt. So I'm going to go 9 out of 10. Like I said, now that we're a couple days removed from Saturday, I'm also much more relaxed. That game Saturday, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, I'd imagine. That game Saturday was the most stressful, anxiety-inducing Vanderbilt game I've ever watched in my life. Whenever and people are going to say, oh, what about the Alabama game? The Alabama game was anxiety-inducing. But Vanderbilt never trailed, and it was more euphoric than anything almost for me personally. This game, whenever you take into consideration what was at stake for Vanderbilt, is truly unprecedented and therefore just skyrocketed my cortisol levels. I'm very glad we get a bye week. I don't normally say that. I am so incredibly thankful for a bye week.
And I think this team needs a bye week. This is a perfectly placed bye week late in the season. You saw Miles Capers go down with what appeared to be concussion-like symptoms, just speculating on the outside. Eli Stowers, who we will talk about, I'm sure, a lot in segment 1, took a lot of big hits during that Auburn game. That was a physical slug-it-out / shootout. That was a physical slug-it-out shootout.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to describe that? Because usually when you hear the term slug-it-out, it means like a 7
like a rock fight
game. That's not what we saw on Saturday, even though that's what a lot of people expected. So we have a lot to get to on episode 341. Before we get into all that and much more, we are now a part of the On3 Publisher Network. Visit thedoreport.com today and subscribe to a monthly or annual premium membership and support TDR for access to premium content, as well as our premium message board behind closed doors. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes or Spotify. It's now time for segment 1.
Club, are you here? I can't hear. I can't hear you. There's too much money in my fucking head.
Welcome back into episode 341 of The Door Report, and welcome into segment 1. Trevor, we have the Auburn Vanderbilt game to recap. The Vanderbilt Commodores came out victorious, 45-38 in overtime, just as everyone expected. A shootout between Vanderbilt and Auburn. Auburn had not given up more than 24 points to an opponent all season, gave up 38 points to Vanderbilt in regulation, and Auburn offense on the other side that scored 3 points against Kentucky the previous week, put up 38 points in regulation against Vanderbilt, and Ashton Daniels looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So how much of that is on the Vanderbilt defense? How much of that is a credit to DJ Durkin and the departure of Hugh Freeze? We'll never know.
Yeah.
But a game that played out differently than literally, not just here at TDR, literally every analyst, not a single person I saw had this game playing out at a 45-38 pace with over 1,100 yards of offense between both teams.
I mean, even Vegas.
I didn't see anyone predict that, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
No one predicted that. Getting into the team stats, we're not going to do individual stats until after our 3 key takeaways from the game, because I'm sure we will hit on some. Both teams over or 30 plus first downs. Vanderbilt with 30 first downs, Auburn with 34. Auburn had 563 yards of total offense. Vanderbilt had 544. On the ground, Auburn ran for over 200 yards. Vanderbilt ran for 167. Through the air, Auburn had 353 yards passing, Vanderbilt with 377. Time of possession was basically split. Vanderbilt possessed the ball for 31 minutes. Auburn possessed it for 29. Penalties, a lot more on Auburn than on Vanderbilt. That was something we talked about before the game. Both teams were heavily penalized teams. Vanderbilt did a good job of cleaning those up. Vanderbilt penalized 3 times for just 21 yards. Auburn penalized 12 times for 91 yards. A lot of those coming on face masks and pass interference calls. And one egregious hold missed against Auburn on the Ashton Daniels run for them to take the lead there late.
I will say, too, they missed an egregious hold on Isaiah Glass where Diego Pavia to Trey Richardson. That was... I don't know how they missed it. I'm thankful, but I don't know how.
The only reason I didn't go absolutely ballistic in the stadium is there was a run earlier in the game that was a touchdown run by Ashton Daniels, I think at the end of the first half, that they called a hold against Auburn, against Nick Rinaldi. Was it a hold? Yes, I think so. Did it have any impact on the play? No, it did not.
I agree. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
It was Nick Rinaldi. He was crashing down. Ashton Daniels was already past him. The Auburn player did have his hands wrapped around Rinaldi, but it had no impact on the play. The referees gave it back to Auburn later when I can't remember the player that did it for Auburn, but literally tackled CJ Hurd.
Yeah.
Like even the announcers were like, I don't know how you missed that one. Like he just tackled it.
Yeah.
The most textbook hold you can have. So overall, referees weren't great. They weren't horrible. I would put this referee grade as far as the SEC curve goes, which is a pretty aggressive curve. I would give it a 5 or 6 out of 10. On the SEC curve.
I think I'm there with you. A
lot of unnecessary reviews as well throughout that game, which has killed the flow of the game. But Vanderbilt emerged victorious. Very even stats from both sides. Not a lot of defense played during that game for Vanderbilt or Auburn. But Vanderbilt's defense stepped up in overtime. That's the team stats. Trevor, anything you want to say before we get into the 3 key takeaways?
Not from the team stats perspective, because like you said, we'll hit on individual as well as team stats in this next portion.
I do want to say another great environment inside of First Bank
Oh,
Stadium.
yes. Actually, yes.
Speakers were on point once again. Replays were slightly better. Still a little frustrating, but replays were slightly better. Vanderbilt did a great job with the fireworks, with the lights, all that. The game day experience is getting better.
Yeah.
And that's all you can really ask. The fans showed up for the most part. I would say it was probably what, 65-35, 70-30 Vanderbilt fans
Mhm,
there.
yeah.
Auburn definitely had a presence, but Vanderbilt was by no means outnumbered with fans.
Also, too, the hype videos going into the fourth quarter, whenever they shut off all the lights and they play Phil Collins, dude, that goes crazy. They always play Shout at the perfect, whoever, for all the crap that we throw at the people that run that, whoever is in charge of playing Shout always times it at the most perfect moment of the game. Whoever's in charge of that, thank you. You do an incredible job. Shout is maybe it is definitely my favorite addition to Vanderbilt game day.
I love it. The one thing I will give credit to, there are obviously issues with game day ops, but it has gotten consistently better throughout the year. And that's all you can really ask. It's gotten consistently better, and hopefully it will continue to improve going into next season and seasons beyond. So we're going to get to our 3 key takeaways. Trevor, I will start, since that was good luck going into last week as Vanderbilt came out with a victory. We would have switched it up again had Vanderbilt lost. But there's my first voice crack of the episode for people keeping track out there. So my number 1 key takeaway is going to be an offensive player for Vanderbilt.
I think I know who it is.
It is Eli Stowers.
Ooh, not who I
Not
thought.
who you thought. That's why I teased it that way. My number 1 key takeaway is Eli Stowers is the best tight end in the country. That performance by Eli Stowers was his best as a Vanderbilt Commodore. He was incredible. I'm going to make sure I get his stats correct here. He led the team in receptions, 12 catches for 122 yards. And so many of those were gritty, difficult catches over the middle, getting hit, took multiple big hits, hung on to the football, was the go-to guy for Diego Pavia the entire day. He was the guy that they went to when they needed a first down, needed a completion. They went to Eli Stowers, and he delivered. And those 12 catches for 122 yards also don't take into account the multiple times that pass interference was committed against him to prevent him from getting the ball. It's a guy we talked about all offseason. It wasn't a secret. He was a first-team preseason AP All-American. So it's not a secret that he's that good. It's just I was hearing some murmurs at the beginning of the year. Is this another Jared Pinkney situation?
I was going to say, tough for those of you on Twitter who called him Jared Pinkney.
He is not.
Tough for you guys.
He is not. Eli Stowers was outstanding and just as good as another guy that plays quarterback for Vanderbilt. Eli Stowers was absolutely phenomenal. So that's my number 1 key takeaway. I'm going a little off what maybe the most obvious one is, but Eli Stowers is the best tight end in the country.
Well, thank you for going off the most obvious, because that saves me my key takeaway number 1 in that Diego Pavia had his Heisman game. Diego Pavia had a quintessential Heisman game. I have never in my life seen a Vanderbilt player take over a ball game the way that Diego Pavia did. Make no bones about it. I totally agree with you. Eli Stowers was sensational. Diego Pavia won that football game. Diego Pavia took over in the pass game and the run game. Diego Pavia, we saw him do stuff from a schematic standpoint that we didn't see in fall camp. And we were talking about it earlier. Whenever Vanderbilt needed to, which was in the entire second half, Vanderbilt went out of their offense. Vanderbilt ditched the RPO 12 personnel heavy stuff and went 5 wide, spread out, lone backfield with Diego Pavia. We didn't see any of that in fall camp. We've never seen that all season long. And he ran it to perfection. So shout out to Diego Pavia. His back has got to be hurting the way he carried this Vanderbilt team against a top 10 Auburn defense. Let's not forget about that. Going into this game, this was a top 10 Auburn defense.
Yeah, Vanderbilt seems to have a habit of taking these top-tier defenses, and then all of a sudden they're not top-tier defenses anymore after Vanderbilt plays them. LSU is a good example. Even though it was late in a fourth-quarter flurry, Vanderbilt put up 31 against Texas. The only defense that they haven't done that to is Missouri. Yeah, Missouri stood up. But, yeah, Diego Pavia, 489 all-purpose yards, 25 of 33 through the air for 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, as well as 18 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Unreal.
I mean, leading passer, obviously, leading rusher. It's just, have you ever seen a Vanderbilt player, and we'll even expand it to like basketball and baseball. Have you ever seen a Vanderbilt player single-handedly take over a game like that?
It's Shane Foster. That's the only
Since
comparable.
Shane Foster since Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's the only comparable
That's the
thing
only
I can
one that I
think
could
of.
think of.
Yeah, that's why I didn't have it as my number one key takeaway, because I wanted to leave that one for you, Trevor.
Thank you.
So
I
really,
need to, if we ever, which God willing we don't ever have to switch it back up, I'm going to start doing that for you because I take your keys all the time.
So my key number 2 was Diego Pavia was incredible, but I'll keep it going. This relates to what you were talking about with Vanderbilt abandoning kind of their offense, for lack of a better term. My key takeaway number 2 is Tim Beck adjusted. That was the key to victory for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt picked up quite a bit of momentum on a 3-play, 75-yard touchdown drive to not end, but their final possession of the first half before Auburn got a field goal right before halftime. 20-10, Auburn led at half. Tim Beck came out in the second half, realized what he was doing was simply not working against Auburn, and adjusted early enough. It's been kind of a small little complaint that Tim Beck has not really been in his bag the last couple games, we'll say. That was not the case this game. Vanderbilt went to a up-tempo offense, and it was exactly what they needed. Got Auburn out of position, had some blown coverages because of it. He put the ball in Diego Pavia's hands and said, we're going to win or lose with the ball in the hands of our best player. And they won with the ball in the hands of their best player. So Tim Beck deserves a lot of credit for taking what is relatively a risky move of just saying, we're going to abandon what we've done all year. We're 7-2, and we're going to kind of abandon what we have done all season because it's not working. And that's kind of a big risk that, looking back, it's an obvious choice to do that because it worked. But Tim Beck deserves a lot of credit for what he adjusted during halftime and what he changed up with the play calling sequences and just the general tempo of the offense. So that's my key takeaway number 2. Hell of a job by Tim Beck. Tim Beck adjusted in the second half.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball, and I'm also going to talk about a coordinator, but in not as positive of a light. It's time to have a discussion about Stephen Gregory. And I want to say it's time to have a discussion about Stephen Gregory and not the defensive personnel as a whole, is because I truly, maybe I'm biased. Like I said, I always have gold colored glasses on. I think the personnel on the defensive side of the ball for Vanderbilt is really good. The reason I say we need to have a discussion about Stephen Gregory is for the past couple, now Texas was tackling. That's not his fault. Nothing he can do about that. But over the past couple of weeks, in terms of the schematics, Vanderbilt defenders have been consistently out of position. The zone in which Stephen Gregory runs is constantly open. There's constantly bubbles across the middle of the field. I'm not going to put that on the defenders because in a zone, they're supposed to cover their zone. If there's these gaping bubbles in the middle of the field, that's not player, that's play calling. I have not been encouraged about what I've seen from Stephen Gregory the past couple of weeks. And let's even go back to the Texas game. The tackling was atrocious. That's not his fault. You know that Texas predominantly runs bubble and tunnel screens, like quick pass game outside, let their guys work in space. Like that's not a shock. Like it's kind of what Steve Sarkisian's made his name on. Consistently telling the guys to play off the line in that game, not respect the bubble screens, not play aggressive, and allowing Texas to run their offense. I think that's an indictment on Stephen Gregory. I have not liked what I have seen from him out of these past couple of weeks. The Vanderbilt defense has game after game after games really regressed. And I think that's an indictment on Steve Gregory. I think Vanderbilt has the personnel to have a really, really good defense. Just from play calling and how he's been aggressive, but it's been aggressive in the wrong times. And it's just weird. Like there's no flow. There's no identity of the defense. And so Stephen Gregory needs to clean it up because Cutter Boley is dealing right now. And you have to go to Knoxville and play a elite Tennessee offense. If Vanderbilt wants to have a shot at making the college football playoff, Stephen Gregory has got to do something.
Well, Trevor,
did I take one of
you
yours?
took another one of mine. I had
dead
four.
gummit,
I had
dead
four
gummit.
written down, and somehow you managed to take 2 of my 4 in your first 2.
Oh
so I'll
gosh.
stick with it. Mine's not even specifically Steve Gregory. It's just more broad. It's time to call a spade a spade. This defense is not good. There was some hope given to Vanderbilt fans early in the season with the performances against what we found out were not really good offenses in Virginia Tech in the second half, against South Carolina, some other performances like against Missouri. I think the Missouri game was the exception that proves the rule. Oftentimes it feels like quarterbacks Vanderbilt is playing against are just having the game of their life, and that includes Ashton Daniels. Ashton Daniels against Kentucky last week, granted it was his first time in starting. They were doing things differently, not as much hurry up. Obviously, Hugh Freeze was still the head coach. But against Kentucky, Ashton Daniels was 13 of 28 for 108 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Okay? Against Vanderbilt, Ashton Daniels was 31 of 44 for 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as 18 carries for 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. On top of that, Jeremiah Cobb ran for 7.2 yards per carry against this Vanderbilt defense and an Auburn offensive line that did make some adjustments, moving a tackle to center, things like that. Vanderbilt could not get consistent pressure on Ashton Daniels. They couldn't get pressure on Arch Manning. They haven't. I know where the rates are in different things, but I'm watching the games with my eyes. This Vanderbilt defense, just for lack of a better term, they're not good. Are they better than they were last year? Yes. But they're not as dramatically improved or dramatically improved whatsoever as Vanderbilt fans might have hoped or been given hope at the beginning of the season. And I think where we set with what this defense was capable of after the Missouri game, it's just been kind of crazy watching it crumble before our eyes. I mean, this Auburn offense is just simply not good.
Yeah.
It's just not a good offense. They have really good skill position players in Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton. The offensive line is not good.
No.
Jeremiah Cobb is not an elite SEC running back. He's not bad, but he's not an elite SEC running back. Ashton Daniels was a backup for a reason. He's not like a freshman that came in and played. He's a journeyman quarterback that came in, and he was not the starter for a reason. And Vanderbilt made him look like a Heisman candidate. So I think it's just time to kind of realize this is an elite offense from Vanderbilt. That's why Vanderbilt is 8-2. It's an elite offense. It's Vanderbilt defense is just not good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Now my question is, and this is where I'm pretty positive of where I stand in terms of the defense. Do you think it's more personnel, or do you think it's play calling, or?
I think it's a combo.
I was gonna say a combo is
That's
easiest
the cop-out
one,
answer.
But let's say if you take away, you can't say combo, and you had to pick one. Is it Gregory or is it the personnel?
I think oftentimes, see, there's not one direction. If I had to assign blame, I mean,
I know I've got you in a terrible gotcha moment.
It's got to go probably. I mean, the Texas game was tackling.
Yes,
that was an issue.
Totally agree.
Tackling was once again not fantastic against Auburn. I went back and watched the whole game. Gave up a lot of extra yardage when it should not have happened. I'm going to have to go like 60-40 personnel. Vanderbilt just is unable to get pressure with their base for rushing. The only time they get pressure is sending extra pressure. That puts Steve Gregory in a tough spot. I just expected, and obviously he went out with an injury kind of in the second half of that game. Miles Capers did. But I just expected that this team would get more consistent pressure with the guys that they had. Most of the pressure and sacks that they get are coverage pressure and coverage sacks. I also think the secondary is the weak point of this team.
I agree with that.
The linebackers kind of still struggle in coverage. Brian Longwell, Langston Patterson do struggle a bit in coverage. The safety struggle a bit. CJ Hurd's not a coverage safety. He's just not. He's a good tackling safety outside of the Texas game. Martell Height just got his lunch eaten by Cam Coleman. Now
that's another guy I want to discuss because I think Martell is good, but objectively he had an awful game. Now I went back and I watched it, and what I'm struggling with is Martell specifically. I thought he was in position for a lot of those, and Cam Coleman just mossed.
That's where.
So like I'm having a difficult time being like Martell because I don't think he sucked. I think Cam Coleman was making plays that I've never seen before.
I don't think there's like one specific.
It's not a one size fits all type thing.
Yeah, one specific group you can say absolutely sucks, but you just don't see this defense consistently make plays on the ball.
Yes,
or the secondary in particular.
Agreed.
It feels like they're right there to make the wrap-up tackle.
Agreed.
But I watch teams across the country, and the cornerbacks are a lot more aggressive. Maybe that's how they're coached.
And that's why I tend to think that might be coaching.
But oftentimes, I do think offensive play calling is different. But oftentimes I think that we really devalue specifically on defense how much of it is just personnel. And it's not saying this Vanderbilt defense has talent. They do. This is a better defense than they had last year. But at the same time, Steve Gregory's not out there making tackles.
Exactly.
And so that's
Agreed.
where I struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, oftentimes it feels like guys are in relatively the right position and they're just not able to make the play.
They got to put a hat on.
Or it's a small thing. Like, I think Rendon Fontenet's a hell of a player. So this is not me dissing Rendon Fontenet whatsoever. But there was one pass in particular that Ashton Daniels floated to the outside. And instead of a pick six down the sideline, it was just a knockdown pass by Rendon Fontenet. Vanderbilt forced 2 fumbles on the same possession on back-to-back plays. Vanderbilt recovered neither of them. There's just small things like that that continue to happen. When was the last time Vanderbilt forced a turnover? It was Missouri. It was C.J. Hurd crashing on a blitz that was a great call by Steve Gregory. Like, the turnovers that just happen as a guy making a play in the base defense just don't seem to be happening. So that's my third key takeaway. The first 2 were positive. I've just got to say this defense is just not good.
For my third key takeaway, I'm trying to remember. Normally I write stuff down, but I didn't write anything down for this because I normally have it off the top of my head. My third key takeaway. Oh, I remember it. There was a narrative going into not just this season, but like even up until this week, that in order to beat Vanderbilt, the people sort of treated him like those Ravens teams with Lamar Jackson, towards like, oh, how you beat them is they're so run heavy. Lamar can't throw the ball. You just got to get up on them by a possession and then force them to throw, and they're not going to be able to come back because they're incapable of doing so. That was the narrative around this Vanderbilt football team, even up until this week, which is a shame given what they did to Texas, that in order to beat this Vanderbilt team, you just have to get up on and make Diego Pavia throw the ball because he can't. What not only Diego Pavia showed, Cedric Alexander, the offensive line, and the receivers showed is that that's not true, and that this is a very, very, very multifaceted offense. And you hit on this with the way that Vanderbilt went into this spread offense. Vanderbilt can choke you out very slowly, get a lead, and just grind the clock and run the ball. They can do that, and they've won a lot of games doing that. If you get up on Vanderbilt by a couple of possessions, Vanderbilt can throw the pill around and still come back on you. Not just come back like they did against Texas, but win the ball game like they did against Auburn. So this whole narrative of Vanderbilt is a one-trick pony, and you just got to get up a couple possessions on them, make them throw the ball. They're incapable of doing that. These wide receivers, these tight ends, and Diego Pavia have dispelled that rumor. And so you hit on it earlier. I just want to expound on that a little bit more. But what this offense can do is if they can go up against anybody and they can score outside of Mizzou, but they're not, luckily for this team, they've had 3 back-to-back-to-back hellholes of a game in terms of going up against defenses. That's not the case no more. You got to go up against
kind of 4. If you want to count LSU.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll count LSU as well. You got to play Kentucky defense that's just lost 2 of their defensive starters, and you got to go up against maybe the worst defense in the SEC in Tennessee.
Yeah, definitely not the worst offense.
Yeah, not the worst offense. You got to go up against a hell of an offense. Maybe the worst defense in the SEC in Tennessee. So it lightens up.
Them or Arkansas.
Shoot, I did. It might be Arkansas. It might be Arkansas. Yeah, now that you say, I forget that they're even playing football.
As much as I want to hate the guys in orange, I've watched Arkansas's defense.
It's so funny that we've switched this narrative. That's like this time of year, everybody forgets that Vanderbilt even plays football. Now everybody knows Vanderbilt plays football, and we've forgot that Arkansas is also a football team.
So one thing that's not in my key takeaways, and this is on the Auburn side of things, but I wanted to bring this up. Cam Coleman.
Lord have mercy, that guy can play.
We both talked about him, or I won't speak for you, but I talked about him all offseason when we were previewing the season and talking about Auburn. Cam Coleman, and this is including playing Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. Cam Coleman is the best wide receiver I've seen Vanderbilt play.
I agree.
He was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of those catches, he took over a game in ways that wide receivers do not often take over games. It was simply, and Auburn dipped into the well one too many times on that 4th down play in overtime, trying to go to him when he was clearly in double coverage. With great decision by Steve Gregory.
Yeah, great decision, but also I don't blame Ashton Daniels for throwing him that ball in double coverage. If I'm Ashton Daniels in that moment and I see him blanketed by Jordan Matthews and CJ Hurd, I'm still throwing him that ball.
I mean, Cam Coleman was incredible.
He was nothing short of exceptional.
It once again just proved it's mind-boggling to me, and this is the proof that quarterback play matters more than anything in the world. Auburn's defense is, this game withstanding, really good. Great defense.
Yeah.
Their wide receivers with Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton might be, outside of, you could argue, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, might be the best 1-2 punch of receivers in the SEC. And this team's 4-6 for Auburn. Quarterback play is king. I mean,
I think you could certainly argue that they're up there with Bernard and Williams.
yeah.
If they had a halfway decent quarterback, and I know he just put up crazy numbers, but if they had a somewhat stable quarterback situation all year long, you would be talking about Cam Coleman and Singleton the way you talk about Bernard and Williams, especially with the year that Williams has had.
Yeah. Also,
where he
just
kind of disappears.
nobody's talking about it enough, but just I'm sure he got paid a little more. Just not a great decision by Eric Singleton to leave Georgia Tech.
Ooh, no.
Man, just he's got to be in the back of his mind thinking that was a regrettable decision.
Yeah.
All right, that is our 3 key takeaways from the Auburn game. Getting to a few stats we didn't hit on. Outside of Diego Pavia, nobody ran for over 40 yards for Vanderbilt. Cedric Alexander, 10 carries for 39 yards, but 2 touchdowns. AJ Newberry, 2 carries for 11 yards. McKalen Young, 5 carries, 7 yards. Receiving receptions, Eli Stowers was the leader. In yardage, Trey Richardson was the leader. Most of that coming on a broken coverage from Auburn, as well as a big play down the field on an incredible pass from Diego Pavia. Trey Richardson, 3 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown. Junior Sherrill, a few big time catches, 4 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. Richie, white boy Rich.
Richie also had a couple big time receptions.
3 catches for 25 yards. Laster got his touch. 1 catch for 14 yards. Cedric Alexander, 1 for 13. Cole Spence, the overtime catch. 1 catch, 4 yards, and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Brian Longwell, Langston Patterson, the 2 leading tacklers for Vanderbilt. Brian Longwell was everywhere this game. Longwell with 12 total tackles. Langston Patterson with 11. Randon Fontenette had 8. CJ Hurd had 6, as well as 1 sack. Those are the tackling leaders. So that is the stat rundown, our 3 key takeaways. Anything you want to add from the game before we go to the TDR cocktail break, discuss some CFP? First, we'll go to premium message board questions. Then we'll talk a little basketball and a little CFP. We'll see how that works out in segment 2.
Yeah, before we head on, I know the defense was Swiss cheese, but 2 guys that I thought, you mentioned both of them, that had really, really good games. I thought Brian Longwell was sensational. I thought Randon Fontenette was the best player on defense. Randon Fontenette was legitimately go back and watch Randon Fontenette in coverage. Watch him get lined up on these slot guys and these tight ends. Watch Randon Fontenette when he had to run stride for stride with these guys. Randon Fontenette was awesome. And he didn't get enough credit. He was spectacular that game.
Yeah, Brandon Fontenette was great as well. I'm glad you brought him up because I brought up Longwell. You brought up Fontenette. So we're going to go to the TDR cocktail break. So everybody out there, grab yourself a delicious hot or cold beverage. And we will be back right after the TDR cocktail break. Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break, and welcome back into episode 341. We're going to start off by discussing just a little bit of basketball because we do not have a football game to preview. So before we get to premium message board questions, which I'm sure there will be a few about basketball, but they will mostly be football, then we're going to get to some college football playoff discussion, but we're going to get to basketball real quick, like 5 to 10 minutes or less. So
That's not what I thought we were going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're starting off with that. I surprised Trevor.
I thought we were going to talk about the ethical implications of AI and 50-year mortgages.
Yeah, that's what we should get to.
You know what? We're going to nix the podcast. No more message board questions. We're going to talk about how bad AI is and how we should revolt against our AI overlords and the 50-year mortgage.
Sounds good for the banks. First up with basketball. So full disclosure, I was only able to watch about half of the opener against Lipscomb because I had just landed in Salt Lake City and had a work dinner right after I landed. And then, of course, the UCF game was tipping off at the exact same time as the football game was kicking off. So I have not really been able to watch much of Vanderbilt basketball live. I've kept up with it. Obviously, I've watched some of the replays. Vanderbilt has scored 105 points in both of their games. Impressive.
Yeah.
Game 1 against Lipscomb, they won 105-61. Now, I will say a lot of people have in their minds the Lipscomb team of last year. That was that was a 14 seed in the NCAA tournament. That is not what this Lipscomb team is.
No.
They lost everything. A
And-
lot of future Northwestern Mutual insurance salesmen on that court for Lipscomb.
Including Lenny Acuff, who is no longer there.
Then Vanderbilt went on to beat UCF on the road 105-93. I also heard quite a bit about, UCF sucks. Well, they're a top 100 KenPom team.
Mhm.
And Vanderbilt, I know the final score was only by 12, but Vanderbilt at certain points throughout that game was up 20 plus, even late.
That was a lot of garbage time points. If you go back and watch that, that's a deceiving final score.
So far through this season, shooting the ball, Vanderbilt has been incredibly efficient, shooting almost 56% as a team, shooting over 46% from three, shooting 79% from the free throw line. Tyler Nichols averaging 18.5 points per game. Tyler Tanner has been outstanding, 17.5 points per game, as well as averaging 3 steals per game. Duke Miles, also a guy we pointed out from the exhibition, averaging 15. Tyler Harris, 14.5. A.K. Okereke, 11.5. Frankie Collins, 10.5. So far, everything you want to see out of Vanderbilt in early games. They have Eastern Kentucky, the Colonels, on the horizon tomorrow evening, or this evening when you're listening to this, when this podcast is released. Vanderbilt will be playing Eastern Kentucky at home. So that is the very quick basketball rundown.
I have a question about basketball for you. Now, I want to get your opinion on this. Tyler Tanner is not going to continue to average 17 points a game. However, do you think, and I know it's only been 2 games, do you think it is sustainable for Tyler Tanner to average 12, 13 points a game this season?
Yes.
You think that's sustainable?
So as much as everybody hated on my Tyler Tanner takes last year, that is not because I did not think Tyler Tanner could develop and would not become an incredibly elite basketball player for Vanderbilt. I just thought at that point, Tyler Tanner was being forced onto the court undersized at times and did not have the capability of scoring. Once I saw the reports coming out of, practice for basketball and then saw the exhibition, I immediately was like, this is a Tyler Tanner breakout season. So yes, I do think if he's improved his shooting, he's almost impossible to guard.
Which it seems like he has. I know
Yes.
it's a small sample size, but I mean, he's shooting the lights out the gyms.
Seems like he has. Vanderbilt sitting at number 15 in KenPom, however, unranked in the AP poll. So KenPom loves Vanderbilt. The AP committee does not.
Evan Maya also loves Vanderbilt. Bart Tort loves Vanderbilt. Everybody loves Vanderbilt except for the people's opinion who matters.
Yep, just not paying
So
attention.
it's, what's new?
So that is a very quick basketball rundown. I think we do have some premium message board questions about basketball. So next up, do you just want to go to premium message board questions before we dig into the CFB stuff? Because I'm sure there will be questions.
I would love
related
to.
that. So let's start at the top. From World's Strongest Vandy Fan. We didn't even discuss this. We definitely should have in the recap. World's Strongest Vandy Fan says, love, love, love Clark Lee having the nuts to go for it on 4th and 1. Sorry, this Zen is whipping my ass right now. You kick it there. High likelihood. And this 4th and 1, by the way, is late in the game. Vanderbilt was at about the Auburn 25. About a minute 13 left or so. Vanderbilt had the choice to either go for it on 4th and 1 or kick a field goal to go up 3 points. And we will discuss that further. But you kick it there. High likelihood they go down and at least a field goal anyway. So you're still playing for OT. You get it. Game is over. I'd rather go for the jugular and end it on our own terms. Seems like we've won every single way possible this year. Come from behind against Virginia Tech and Auburn. Second half surge against South Carolina. Defensive slugfest against Missouri. Shootout, Auburn. And back and forth close game, LSU. Seems as if we can play any sort of ball we are forced to play. Not many teams can say that. Also, why do people think Beck/Kill would leave? This is their retirement job. No logical way they'd restart anywhere else. So a lot to get to.
Yeah.
Number one, let's start with the 4th and 1 decision.
I loved that call.
I know my thoughts on it.
Yeah, my dad, we were talking about it during the game and after the game. My dad didn't like it. He thought he should have kicked it. I love my dad to death. Even though they didn't get the 4th and 1, I disagreed. And I said, in that moment, if you get that first down, it's over. If you kick the field goal, you're still putting it up the chance. I'd rather just go for the first and end it. So now that is a tough call. Kudos to Clark Lee. That took some nuts. But I thought that was the right call, even though they didn't get it.
So mine's on the same side as you, but slightly more nuanced than that. So there's multiple sides to it. Number one, that was the right decision. If this game was tied 17-17 and Auburn did not already have 500 plus yards of offense, you kick the field goal. Also, Clark Lee has shown that he's willing to go for it and put the game on his team to win it.
Mm-hmm.
So Vanderbilt never would have been in that position had they not gone for it on their own 34 on that same drive. That's the only reason they were even in that position, is he took an extremely big nutsack risk and went for it on his own 34 on 4th and 1 in the same situation. A lot of it is flow of the game. That's the big part. That was, in my opinion, the right decision, and I'm not going to change that because it didn't work. You can argue about what the play call was, what all that was, but in my opinion, that was the right decision. There's almost no doubt in my mind Auburn would have thrown it on the field and at least had a chance at a field goal, if not scored, with how this Vanderbilt defense had performed. So I think it was the right decision. It seems like I put a poll on the premium message board. It seems like about 60% or so did agree with Clark Lee to go for it there. But we have begged oftentimes as Vanderbilt fans for a coach that would play to win the game, not play to not lose, to play to win the game. You've got it in Clark Lee. This is what it looks like. Because if they would have converted that, people would have talked about how ballsy of a call it was and how it was the right decision and all that. But oftentimes people like to play armchair quarterback, Monday morning quarterback, and go back and say, "No, I didn't like it because they didn't get it." It's like, yeah, that's the risk you take. But I agree with exactly what World's Strongest Vandy fan says.
As do I.
Getting to the next one about this team is won in multiple ways. We've talked about that
totally
multiple
agree.
times. And then the question about Beck/Kill leaving. Do you think that's a possibility?
No. I've said it on the board. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it on the pod. It's not going to happen, guys. Just wait and see. We've made some remarks on the board. Just I'm not trying to sound rude and like dismissive whenever people bring this up, but like, I don't know. It's like a very tired talking point, and it comes from this place of like Vanderbilt fans being fearful that like, oh, it's still Vanderbilt, and like they're always going to get poached and they're always going to be the stepping stone. And so from that aspect, I understand it, but like, let's just take a couple deep breaths and just like look at it for what it is and tell me why they would leave.
Tim Beck is more of a concern than Jerry Kill. I will say I don't think Jerry Kill is going anywhere. Jerry Kill had health issues, which is why he's not still a head coach. Also, like, these guys aren't spring chickens. That's the other part. These aren't like young up-and-coming coordinators or coaches. That's not what they are. So it's a slightly different situation than what a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah.
Getting to the next question from Ezra Chris Magnon says, how are we feeling about Pavia's Heisman odds / what does Pavia need to do to be one of the 4? He currently seems like the first man out, but I have no idea why a player like Marcel Reed has better odds than he does.
Marcel Reed has better odds than he does because his team's undefeated. I think that's as simple as it is. You can argue about it and disagree about it. I personally disagree with it, but that's just the way the Heisman committee and the Heisman voting has always been. I think Diego's just got to keep doing what he's doing. He'll be in New York. I really do.
Yeah, right now the odds go Fernando Mendoza of Indiana is plus 130, Julian Sayin is plus 170, Marcel Reed is plus 700, Ty Simpson plus 800, then a big jump, Diego Pavia at number 5 plus 2,000. To be honest, I don't think there's anything Diego Pavia can do with what's remaining on his schedule. I think he will be the odd man out. It just is what it is. I think the Heisman race is basically down to Mendoza and Julian Sayin, unless something happens unexpectedly between both of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So getting to New York is a bit of a different discussion. And right now, Pavia does seem like the odd man out. I think that's the best way to put it. I mean, he's had some incredible Heisman-like performances. Unfortunately, they've come against Auburn That one came against Auburn, not a top-tier opponent. It came in a victory, and he's lost the 2 biggest games of the season. Had his opportunity against Texas. If they would have recovered that onside kick, we'd be having a very different discussion right now, but it didn't happen. You got to have things break the right way for that to happen. So right now it does look like he's the odd man out to me. And it's also, he's incredibly impactful. His stats are solid. And if you watch games, you know that he deserves to be there. But just statistically, it's just not quite there to bump up from a team with 2 losses. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And that's why I said you can agree with it or disagree with it. I disagree with that methodology, but unfortunately, that's how the Heisman methodology has been for my entire lifetime.
Yep. Mount Juliet Door, what is your prediction? Will we see more of the up-tempo, wide-open offense, or do you think we go back to more ball control the clock mode versus Kentucky, unless the game dictates otherwise?
I think you go back to your base offense unless you have to go spread. And I think that's what Vanderbilt did in Auburn. They were in their base offense until the game dictated that they had to get out of that. I think that's how they will be moving forward.
Yep. You perfectly said that. GLH 4VU. Who's got it better than us? There we go. It goes on to say, I've given Beck a lot of shit the past few games, but he seemed to make good adjustments and let Pavia be Pavia in the second half, and it worked. Do we continue to see that? I think he will be more willing to adjust to that with what you have seen, but I think you stick with what you were doing until you need to adjust.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. If Vanderbilt came out against Kentucky, like, hurry up 5 wide, then I'd be like, what the hell are we doing? You know what I mean?
Agree.
I'd be like, what, like, it worked, but like, why are we doing this right now?
Goes on to say, Gregory made one good play call all night, hyperbole in parentheses, but it won us the game on the last play. But what has happened to this defense? There hasn't been a lot to be excited about the last couple games. What is the focus during the bye week? I just think the defense is just not that good.
And 2, in terms of the focus during the bye week, I think you're at the point of the season to where, like, you're not going in and overhauling or changing or implementing anything new. The goal for the bye week, as frustrating as this might be for fans to hear, is to get healthy and to rest and to recover and to try and rub out any nicks or bruises that you have. It's not going to be, hey, let's go in and let's fix this schematic issue. It's just going to be to get healthy.
Yeah, they just don't have, when you look at these other, I think Wataha not playing this year is a big impact on this defense as well. That's something that hasn't really been talked about. It's forced Zaylen Wood to play tremendously more on the inside. Mason Nelson gets a lot more snaps. I just think that has kind of misplaced this defensive line in some ways, because the next question is also about the defense from Vandy Gal 78. What is going on with this defense? Are they just worn out? Thank goodness for the bye week. Bad coaching / assignments, ? Injuries? Is Lee going to get more involved with the defense? I don't think Lee's going to be more involved with the defense. I think he's pretty involved as it is.
Yeah, that question is also just above our pay grade.
Yeah, if there's a good, I don't think it's one single thing. Like, I think it's a pretty split thing. I just don't think Vanderbilt has the depth of athletes for an elite defense. I think they're improved from last year, but you still just have issues with athletes across the board, and they do need to get healthy. That's a big part of it as well.
Well, and I think too, and I'd have to go and look at the total defense in the SEC. I think total defense still Vanderbilt's like even after the Auburn game is a middle of the pack defense, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're certainly not last or second to last. They're probably what, 11 or 12 in total defense?
In points given up per game, Vanderbilt's 10th.
Okay.
I can't find yardage.
So 10th. I know I would imagine if I had to guess in total defense, they're probably anywhere from 8 to 12. So it's not it's certainly, as frustrating as these past couple weeks have been, there's no doubt in any Vanderbilt fan's mind this has been a step up from last year.
And when I say not good, that just means pretty average.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
You're
that,
not
that
saying
doesn't mean
they're
awful.
Yeah.
It just means this team has a average to below average defense, slightly below average to average, and the offense is elite. And that's what the advanced analytics will tell you as well.
And that can win you ball games.
In the country, Vanderbilt is 58th in yards given up per game. They're giving up 357.2 yards per game. So I just think this team has weakness against the pass. And that's ultimately the problem right now.
Yeah.
They can stop the run relatively well.
Up until this Auburn game, they were doing a really, really good job of stopping the run.
Yeah, so it's not one single thing, but I think the issues are just the same issues we talked about before the season.
Mm-hmm.
Midges VU says, I watch every week, so it's time for my bloody question. Giggling in my best schoolgirl voice while fist pumping. Oops, I didn't read the question prior. So y'all may have already gone over every bit of this, but in case you haven't, it's another question about the defense. What y'all's thoughts on this defense? I don't think out of the blue, the players on that side just suddenly became bad or barely average. Obviously, big boy teams do start figuring you out, except once again, our offense. It's the same thing we've been talking about. Coaching incompetence, setting in with too many defensive plays in their heads or Gregory's head, or just simply having the players schemed up or lined up incorrectly too often, particularly 10 games into the season, you're going the wrong way. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Sorry. In addition, what's up with the secondary? They seem to be playing too soft and passive. Now, granted, the ball isn't flying over their heads like we've seen a couple of 2 to 3 billion times in our Vanderbilt viewing careers. That's not the players, I don't think, for the most part. What do you fellers think? Thank you all for all you do, gang of two who just ooze passion, and Miss Phoebe who makes it all work.
Yeah, she's in Will's lap right now. Look at her.
I disturbed her rest.
Yeah, we've already
talked about
a lot of that, a lot to unpack. I think I differ from Will. I think it's primarily schematics. I think you watch the game, they're playing a lot of zone. They're playing really soft zone, letting guys letting the wide receivers and the quarterback be able to find the soft spots in the zone. But that also goes to the defensive line. You know, if you don't want them to find the soft spots in the zone, they get pressure quick. So
another question about the defense from Colombiano Door. Why do we suck so bad versus no huddle? Obviously, all defenses struggle with it, but we especially do. This game left me very little confidence about their potential performance versus UT's offensive system. Is it a system that relies on many at-the-line adjustments we don't have time for?
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, in that they made the comment that all teams struggle with no huddle, but especially Vanderbilt. I'm going to push back. I don't think Vanderbilt struggles that much more than every other team with no huddle. And the reason being is because no huddle is very hard to stop. It's like you've said and we've said on this pod, defense is very reactionary. There's a reason the defense doesn't huddle. They're all standing back there waiting to see what offensive formation the offense comes out on, to see where guys are lined up, and then react to where everybody is aligned. And so if you don't give the defense time to see where everybody is aligned and then make adjustments on that, they're already at a severe disadvantage. So that's why it's so easy to dink and dunk and get easy yardage. And that, I don't think Vanderbilt sucks comparatively to everybody else in no huddle. I just think it puts the defense at a severe disadvantage. And you saw that with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt used that to their advantage on offense and put Auburn at a severe disadvantage in being able to make checks and adjustments whenever you go 5 wide and you're just play turbo.
Next question is not about the defense. I agree with what you just said. Yet another door lawyer. This is a good question. This will lead to CFP discussion. Says, okay, I hesitate to even ask this because of the reaction last week. I think at 10-2 with multiple ranked wins, that should be enough to get us in. I also know that there is likely cannibalizing up ahead of us, Oklahoma and Texas, as well as the Big 12. I still think there is a Notre Dame-sized problem who the committee clearly still values, even though our blind resume seems much better. Is there any hesitation towards the win and in approach we've had the last few weeks? Me and Trevor are going to have slightly different responses.
Yeah, and so I'll go for I think until I'm proven otherwise. Now, absence of evidence does not equal evidence to the contrary. But until I'm proven otherwise, I am not going to believe that a 10-2 SEC team is going to be left out of the playoff. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to. So I do think that the mantra of when you're in, survive and advance continues for this Vanderbilt team. But it's like we've discussed. You're going to need things to happen in front of you. Vanderbilt is going to have teams in front of them lose, particularly Texas and Oklahoma. It would really, really help out if Notre Dame lost as well. But I'm just going to highlight Texas and Oklahoma. If Vanderbilt can keep winning and teams in front of them, namely Texas and Oklahoma, those SEC teams can lose, I think Vanderbilt is going to get into the playoff. I do not think that they are going to put a 2-loss Big 10 or Big 12 team in over a 2-loss SEC team. I don't think that's going to happen, especially when neither one of them have the AQ. So I do think that the winning you're in mantra continues for me personally. Now, like Will said, he disagrees a little bit.
A little bit. So I was very much on that exact side. The part that has continued to baffle me, and I've tweeted about it multiple times, is the last time we recorded, because we had to record on Sunday because I was going on a trip. This is before the first CFP committee rankings were out. With where Utah sits ahead of Vanderbilt at 13, where Vanderbilt's sitting at 14, never did I imagine that Utah would be ahead of Vanderbilt with their resumes. Especially if you want to go by where teams are currently ranked. Vanderbilt has 2 losses that are better than Utah. And Vanderbilt also has at least as good, if not better, wins. The blind resume thing. Vanderbilt is better than Utah. Utah being ahead of Vanderbilt makes me waver a bit on that stance. I don't get it. I don't understand why the committee loves Utah. And you can talk to me about metrics and rankings. Shut the fuck up about the metric stuff. I hate that is becoming involved in these rankings. Basketball is different because there's so many games and such a diversity of schedule that it makes it so different. Football should be looking at who you have played, who you have beaten, and who you have lost to. Mm-hmm. It should be relatively that simple. And Utah's resume is worse than Vanderbilt, but the committee has them ranked above Vanderbilt. That is where things start to concern me. I just did not anticipate that happening. So Vanderbilt does need help. It doesn't mean they need unlikely things to happen. Yeah. But they do need help. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they need Texas and Oklahoma to lose. And they definitely need Texas to lose because there's some fear in the back of my mind that the committee's going to put a 9-3 Texas team ahead of Vanderbilt. There's a small fear in the back of my mind, and I've heard multiple analysts talk about it. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is a small concern. A Notre Dame loss this weekend to Pittsburgh would have me dancing. And ultimately, you just have to put blinders on and say a 10-2 SEC team is just not going to be left out. That's kind of still where 60% of me is sitting. If you would have asked me before the first CFP rankings, I would have told you that that's where I was sitting 99%. There's still a lot of football to be played. November's always chaotic in college football. That's where this discussion, this is the first time Vanderbilt has been involved in this discussion, obviously. There's all this discussion that things are just going to go scratch, that they're just going to go chalk. Yep. And that's just not how it works. An unexpected loss is going to happen. You saw it this past weekend with Louisville and Virginia. Both lost to teams that they should not have lost to. And then if Vanderbilt is left out, or even now beforehand, I get it. And people can hate on this because, of course, you've seen victories by these schools or whatever you want to call it. I like the concept of a G5 school getting a bid. The concept of it, I like. However, because you've mandated that, simply this year there is not a G5 school that deserves to be in. Last year there was. Years past, there have been G5 schools that deserve to be in. This year, there isn't. Mm-hmm. There isn't an outstanding G5. We're talking about USF or James Madison. Memphis just lost to Tulane. Like, there's just not an outstanding G5 school that deserves their shot. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, it's backed into a corner with how it's written. And I know to get everybody agreed to this, that you have to have at least the champion of the Power 4 championship game gets an automatic bid. I understand that. I don't know if there's an ACC school that deserves to be in this year either. Now, Georgia Tech is sitting with 1 loss, but they play Georgia at the end of the year. And it's very unlikely to me that Georgia Tech is going to beat Georgia. there's a lot of ball to be played out. And with 12 teams and in football, you have to do it differently. I somewhat wish that this was more in some ways, because I know conference champions of their tournament get in the NCAA tournament, but that's 68 teams. I wish it was just the best 12 teams. I wish there wasn't this thing tied to, oh, well, there's an automatic G5 qualifier and things of that nature. I feel like that's going to screw over a team this year. And I just really hope that's not Vanderbilt. But it's not that Vanderbilt needs unlikely things to happen. You just got to do some hate watching this weekend, the upcoming weekends. You got to root for a BYU or Utah loss. You got to root for a Notre Dame loss against Pittsburgh. You got to root, unfortunately, for Alabama and Georgia this weekend, which is something that I usually do not do unless they are playing Tennessee. So, yeah, Vanderbilt needs, quote-unquote, help, but I don't think it's unlikely help. There is a lot of football still left to be played.
Yeah.
There are a lot of teams that still have 3 games remaining on their schedule, and there will be unlikely losses. Things are just not going to go chalk in college football. I just don't expect that to happen.
No, it's college football in November. Like, when is college football in November ever gone chalk?
But, yeah, I am softening up on that take, however, that it's just simply winning you're in. There are scenarios where I think that doesn't happen, unfortunately. And I'm not going to lie, that would kind of crush me in a different way than I've been crushed before. It's like Vanderbilt did it. We were talking about the possibility of Vanderbilt making it at 9-3 before the season happened. And now we're discussing if they can even make it at 10-2.
I don't know why I just stuttered right there. The dichotomy of TDR strikes once again, because I'm very firm in like 10-2 and you're in.
The Utah thing, I don't get it. And people were mad at me about that tweet that I said I don't understand Utah, and it's because of their metrics and whatever. But you look at Utah's resume, and I do not get it. Vanderbilt's resume is objectively better than Utah. It just is. If you're looking at strength of record, if you're looking at who they've played, Utah has beaten UCLA, Cal Poly, Wyoming. They lost to Texas Tech by 24. One of the only decent teams they've played. They beat West Virginia. They beat Arizona State. They lost to BYU, who just got shellacked by Texas Tech. They beat Colorado. They beat Cincinnati. And they have Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas on the horizon. That resume to me is not better than Vanderbilt's. It's just not. But the committee seems determined that Utah is 13, Vanderbilt is 14. That concerns me. So Trevor's more confident than me, but I'm still confident.
Yeah.
But Trevor's more confident than me.
I think too, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like I watch a lot of ball, but I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm a expert in Big 12 football. People who are paid, which take that for what it is, who are paid to write about college football, basically have a foregone conclusion that there's no way, even if things in front of them happen, there's no way Utah makes it in. So by that, I'm going to infer that experts, air quotes, think that it's a foregone conclusion that Utah drops one more game at least. So maybe listeners could take solace in that. But like you said, they got Baylor, Kansas, Kansas State. They could drop any one of those games. They could actually drop multiple of those games.
I don't think that's unlikely. They are an 8.5-point favorite on the road against Baylor this weekend.
And that's dropped 3 points since it opened.
So that is something to keep an eye on. Notre Dame with their last test whatsoever against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Next up from Columbiano Door. Any word on if Clark's extension includes Beck, Kilsteiner bumps?
I haven't heard anything, but I would imagine they do.
Yeah, no idea.
I mean, that's pretty standard for any coach. Extension is their assistants also get extended and bumped.
Phoebe hair in my nose. Pavia Mafia. I was in town for homecoming this past weekend, and it was my first game at the bank this year. The atmosphere at Lot 2 and in the stadium was awesome. Should In the Air Tonight, a bar song, Tipsy, and Shout become home game staples, or do you prefer them to mix it up each week?
No. Home game staples.
Home game staples. Shout is incredible.
Shout is incredible. Tipsy by Shabuzi is incredible. And
Phil Collins.
I'll never say no to Phil Collins. Even if it's not just his his single work. If like they want to throw in some Genesis, take me home. No, that's Eddie Money. Invisible Touch. Invisible Touch. Great song.
Next up is a basketball question. Non-con record prediction from GLH4VU. Looking at the schedule, which I have a ton of tabs pulled up here, so give me 1 second. Looking at the schedule, Vanderbilt's got Eastern Kentucky, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Texas Southern, Western Kentucky, SMU, Central Arkansas, at Memphis, at Wake Forest, New Haven, and then conference play begins. I would say 1 or 2 losses is where you.
I'm sitting
prediction.
at 1 or 2 losses as well. I lean 1. I think they dropped that Memphis game. That's Christmas Eve, right?
No, Memphis is the 17th.
Wasn't that supposed to be a Christmas Eve game?
Maybe. Not sure.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Misinformation here.
And I might be missing one of these as one of the battles in Atlantis or something like that. So there might be a couple more opponents in there, but I would say 2 losses is likely my prediction. I'm hoping for 1 with what I've seen, which is not much so far. I can't wait to actually watch the game fully tomorrow night. I haven't been able to sit down and watch a full Vanderbilt basketball game so far. Ow, Phoebe.
Hey, why
Fuck.
you stop?
He's bit me. Damn producer. NBA Door asks a good question. Which team finishes higher in the AP poll? Vandy football or Vandy basketball?
That's a really good question. I am going to go football. I'm feeling football. We're going to make the playoff.
I'm feeling football as well. We kind of already went over this, but Kodak Black and Gold, how many situations do you see where 2-loss Vandy gets left out of the college football playoff?
0.
Trevor sees 0. I see a few scenarios that can break down with Vanderbilt getting left out.
Well, I take that back. If total chalk ahead happens, total chalk. Like Texas and Oklahoma are going to have to win out.
Well, that wouldn't be chalk.
Not chalk, sorry.
Like the worst.
Anti-chalk.
Yeah, some very bad scenarios are certainly out there where I think it can happen. But it has to be Oklahoma has to win out, Texas wins out, Utah wins out, BYU wins out.
Like Texas would have to beat Georgia and Texas A&M.
Yep.
Like, I get it, guys. Like, but let's think about that. What are the odds they beat both of them?
Mr. Magoog says, piggybacking off that question, the 9-3 Texas scenario is one that really concerns me. Would have the same conference record, own the head-to-head, and would have split Georgia, Texas A&M games down the stretch. Recency bias. They also own the head-to-head with Vanderbilt, and they would have a good-looking loss against Ohio State early in the season. The counterpoint is that they lost to Florida. But I have a sneaky suspicion that the committee/media will treat that in the same way Alabama is forgiven for the early loss to Florida State. Is Alabama forgiven? Somewhat.
I've talked about this on. Is the question over? I'm sorry. I don't want to
there's
interrupt.
more to
Okay,
it.
go ahead.
I find the whole thing very frustrating because the other narrative coming out is that Vanderbilt will have no wins against top 25 ranked teams when we will have beaten 4 top 25 teams when we played them. We will have beaten Tennessee on the road, and that will knock them out of the top 25 and won't count. The trend continues. The trend across SEC across media commentary is that Vanderbilt won't have the resume regardless of if they go 10-2. And I think that would be thought of as ridiculous for any other SEC team not named Vanderbilt. This is certainly a situation of Vanderbilt bias. If you put Vanderbilt's resume in an Oklahoma uniform or an Auburn uniform, let's use that, this wouldn't be a discussion. This is because of where Vanderbilt started, is what it is. People love Tennessee still ranked because of the quality of their losses. That's why Tennessee's number 23 in the college football rankings, because of the quality of their losses. Well, there's nobody with better quality losses than Vanderbilt. On the road, if we're doing the current ranking thing, which is not how you actually count ranked wins, but how you can evaluate strength of record and things, Vanderbilt has lost to 2 top 10 currently ranked CFP teams on the road. One by 3 points against Texas on the road, one by in what came down to a game where it was a one-scorer game in the final 8 minutes against Alabama. Both are and Alabama's number 4 in the CFP rankings. Vanderbilt has quality losses. They can't help that they have quality losses, which I guess they can help that, but they've beaten everybody else in front of them. And all this comes down to Vanderbilt has to win out, obviously. And I feel like that's a talking point. Just keep winning. Just keep winning and let the chips fall where they may. That's kind of where I sit at this point. There's a lot of ball to be played.
Yeah, and I Magoogs asked this, right?
Yep.
And I had this conversation with him on Twitter, and I think this is something that a lot of people are forgetting. So the committee has a partnership with ESPN. The playoff has a partnership with ESPN. The metrics they use are ESPN metrics. Whenever we have this conversation and ESPN analysis have this conversation about a 9-3 Texas team going in, what they're not telling you is they are also predicting that Vanderbilt goes 9-3. Because whenever you look at ESPN FPI, it currently has Vanderbilt losing to Tennessee. So I think we need to remember that whenever they're saying 9-3 Texas getting in, they're not saying a 9-3 Texas team is getting in over a 10-2 Vanderbilt team. They are saying a 9-3 Texas team gets in while Vanderbilt also has a 9-3 record. So I understand it's very confusing, but I think we need to remember that whenever we are talking about Texas within the context of this getting in at 9-3, Vanderbilt in this scenario is also 9-3. And so whenever you're looking at predictive measures and predictive outcomes, what they are using is ESPN FPI. So go look at the predictive ESPN FPI, and it'll make sense why they're saying 9-3 Texas, because they're considering Vanderbilt to also be 9-3 at that point in time.
Yeah, there's a lot of ball to be played. That's the gist of it. And the main thing is Vanderbilt has to beat Kentucky and Tennessee on the road. And Tennessee on the road, with how this Vanderbilt defense has performed, let's face it, is Vanderbilt's likely going to at least be a 6.5-point underdog against Tennessee on the road. If I had to set the line, it's going to be 6.5 or 7.5 against Tennessee. That offense that Josh Heupel runs and Tennessee runs is a nightmare for Vanderbilt, as I said in preseason, as I've continued to say. So all of this is a moot point if Vanderbilt doesn't win out.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of the frustrating thing for me too. And I get it; it's exciting to talk about. It is exciting. And I'm the most excited person, but like none of it matters if Vandy doesn't win out. None of it matters. If Vanderbilt drops another game, none of this conversation stops immediately. Just win. Just win.
That's the only thing you control.
Yes.
The only thing you can control. Just win. The common man's Commodore 95. He's back, baby.
My guy.
Dearest mother, though my quill faltered last week, our encampment has endured the fiercest of battles and has once again risen to stand victorious, making me want to shout. Our triumph over the ambush of tigers, who also gendered themselves to eagles, has secured us a triple crown over enemy tigers, stretching across our domain as we march toward the winter playoff. The battle proved much fiercer as the interim commander ignited a fire in his regime that will leave supporters pondering. If only this had been done sooner. We now lay our heads in rest, carefully studying the moves of our foes ahead and seeking to answer the pressing question: are the Doors a playoff crown contender? As always, anchor down, Admiral C. Love it.
Even on a bye week, he hits.
Data Door.
I'm going to love this guy.
Would we expect any future phases to Vandy United for football to be announced along with Lee's extension? A new football ops building and new indoor practice facility were alluded to when Vandy United was announced years ago, but feels like there has been nothing more on them since then.
We're hearing things.
Can confirm. Check the premium message board. Check
the board where there's whispers.
Subscribe to thedoorreport.com. Just $1 and you get a free year of The Athletic included with your membership as part of the $1 annual membership free trial. NBA Door asks, Vandy currently sits at 41st in the high school recruiting rankings. Where do they finish in strictly high school rankings?
Strictly high school, I'll go 30 to 35.
Yeah, I would say they're there's a huge trophy piece that would obviously adjust that ranking a lot in Jared Curtis. And that's still a bit, I won't call it a pipe dream. That's too dramatic of low odds, but that's a bit of a pipe dream in some ways. But I would say, yeah, they're probably going to finish around there and then have to build the roster through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Last one, in response to the Common Man's Commodore, Vandy fan has jumped in.
Ooh.
My dearest son. Well, I don't know where this is going to go. So pardon whatever is said.
I'm guessing he's taking the form of the
mother.
Common Man's Commodore or the Common Fans. I'm just not going to even talk.
The Common Man's Commodore 95's mother.
Yeah, I don't know.
My
why.
dearest son, your dispatch arrived just as I was beating the dust from the parlor rug, and my heart seized like a rusted bayonet. The news reached home that the striped tigers might overrun the camp. I clutched the mantle, felt the old flutter turn to thunder, and nearly pitched into the hearth with a proper heart attack as I saw your letter arrive and suspected the war lost. Your cousins, Jack and Daniels, sustained my frame against the dire tidings while I pictured those claw-footed beasts swarming the Commodore banners. Alas, the news was not dire at all. Tidings reach us by other hands that two sun-scorched mercenaries fresh from the New Mexico Badlands loosed such a broadside of brimstone that the Tigers rolled over like ninapins in a gale. The Commodore pennant cracks aloft, and the doors jig to that shout, shanty till the planks fairly sing. Mind your footing, son. I'll not have you limping home when there are more battles to be won. Mark the horizon. First the wildcats, sleek tabbies that purr pretty, but scatter at the first whiff of powder or smoke. Then those orange coats out east. Lord help us. Those mutton-headed boobies couldn't outthink a 10-day-old mud cake. I've seen brighter lanterns on a foggy wharf. Tell the gunners to double shoot. The lummoxes will likely salute their own boots and call it tactics led by their lard-bellied lordling of a commander. Rest, but keep your eyes forward. The war is only halfway over and the playoff approaches. Yours in love, Mother. Wow, we've developed something special,
dude.
On this board.
I'm at a loss for words.
That was beautiful.
I agree with you. Something special has developed on the board, and I think the only way forward is that every week Mother has to write back simultaneously. Son has to post. Mother has to write back. Additionally, from here on out, I'm making this declaration. Every time you comment on the Q&A, you have to talk as if you were a Civil War general. That is my request. No more plain speak. Talk as if you are a sharecropper in 1870. I think that's whenever the Civil War was.
1861 to 1865.
Ooh, not a history guy. I'm a history guy, but I prefer the Russian Revolution.
I was right. 1861 to 1865. Look at me.
Were you in AP history?
I
bet
was.
you were.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
AP US history, actually. So just trying to brag a little bit.
AP Eastern European history. Do shout to the block.
So a bye week ahead for Vanderbilt fans. Time to sit back, but not relax. Need to be hate watching some games. I will be in Lexington cheering on my Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles, currently sitting at number 5 in the country, taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. A stat my dad sent me that kind of blew my mind. This year so far, obviously Tennessee Tech is an FCS program, a really good FCS program, 10-0 for the first time in program history.
Going to make the playoffs.
I don't know where he got this stat, but he said FCS opponents versus Power 4 this year. Power 4 is 62-0 in those games by an average score of 50-9.
I have a feeling that game will not be a 50-9 score.
I think Kentucky's a 22.5 point favorite if my memory serves correct. So I will be up there. First time in Lexington, first time at Kroger Field.
Are you I mean, I'm assuming you're gonna be wearing Tennessee Tech gear.
Yes.
That's gonna be awesome.
I'll be wearing a Tennessee Tech hat, and I could not find my old Tennessee Tech quarters up. So I'll be wearing a Tennessee Tech polo. Hopefully I don't have to cover it up too much with a jacket because it seems like it's going to be warming up.
Before you head to Lexington, you should make a pit stop in Cookeville and go to the bookstore.
Well, that's not on the way, but Text down I-40 East.
See, geographically challenged as well.
That is all for the premium message board questions. Trevor, any last thoughts before we head into the end of episode 341? Need to cheer for Pitt, need to cheer for Bama, cheer for Georgia, and cheer for Baylor. That's the message of this weekend. And I can't remember who BYU is playing.
Do they have a bye week?
Looking it up.
BYU might have a bye week, but other than that, no.
No, BYU plays TCU. BYU
That's
is
right. The
BYU
Horned
is
Frogs.
only a 4.5 point favorite over TCU. So you're TCU fans as well this week.
Yes. Hey,
Nash on Twitter will like that.
I'm always a TCU fan because I love and will be forever grateful for my boy Ken Seals, who's
Dog.
still playing college football for some reason. Who would have thought it that Ken Seals is still playing football?
All right. For myself, Will Byrum, and my co-host Trevor Hulan, this has been episode 341 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.